Subtle Energy Peaks, Nervous System Dysregulation Series, Part 2, Indigenous Energy Healing Talk Therapy. I studied Ho'oponopono from a 50th generation Hawaiian elder on the island of Molokai, Hawaii. I studied this formally with him after living as his shadow for an entire winter season. I slept in a tent under a larger canopy next to his hut. I wasn't a guest. I was a student. I came to learn. I learned in the traditional manner. It was very challenging. I learned far more than what my kumu intended, admitted to by him in conversations, after I'd shown him the changes in myself when I returned to be a teacher's assistant in further programs only a few years later. Nothing surprises me, but Joanna did. Those were his words. Now that I'm working with clients in my role as a therapist, using what I learned from his Indigenous wisdom and my modern world challenges and changes, I understand a lot more about what he expected from me back then, at the beginning. He didn't know me enough to not underestimate me. I practice an altered form of Ho'oponopono. That's why I don't call it by the same name. What I was taught gave too much leeway for the modern person. I could just easily tell someone what the issue is and say, go tell them you love them. But I know from tracking people who had this kind of original style therapy that they don't know how to enact this instruction with the emotional depth and honesty required. They can't move beyond their ego's set rules, their learned choices. Most of them, even after having sessions with the kumu, never connected to their loved one to tell them anything directly from their heart. Hearing this saddened me very much each time. I've worked tirelessly to find a way to make the healing occur in my presence as a therapist. I have made sure the healing is done in session, rather than leaving a space for the client's ego to take control and reverse the good work that they've done. I'm going to tell you how I took the result of my traumas from childhood and turned them into effective therapy for the modern person. I call it Indigenous Energy Healing Talk Therapy. It is no longer Hawaiian, yet it is Indigenous. Arising from the inside is the absolute meaning of the word. I am using it in this way. I am encouraging humans to become their Indigenous selves. I truly want a person to find who they are from their inside terrain rather than the terrain of the modern world. Thus far in my journey, seemingly halfway through, I have concluded the modern solutions are half-assed at best. I have discovered healing is all about learning. I did not find anything I know in a book. I found the sadness from within. I found the anger from within. I found people who mirrored negative parts of me, which I was not allowed to make public with my father. I healed by finding the truth from within me. I found my mother, who walked the rainbow when I was an infant, from within me. She's hanging out in the undifferentiated world with the same being many call God. I found all of this by clearing the negative forest which grew in my mind while I was a child. Yes, I became a spiritual logger. I was guided by my second and third year of life, where I remember playing with my mum in the sky, just above my head, until a teacher put a thought, another negative tree, in my mind, which made me no longer find her in those skies. I vowed to do anything, to feel the love, the joy, the happiness in life, the feelings and sensations I remember from being with her. What I was required to do was clear the forest, one negative tree at a time. Now the forest is clear, and I am free to stand at the metaphorical window between the physical dimension of life and the non-physical. She can't come any further toward me, and I cannot leave the physical world yet, so we meet at the window and just be our ams together. When asked what I do, I reply now, I'm a therapist and I run an online school. Those are accepted words which require no further explanation. Yet I also understand. The receiver of my explanation will not understand what I actually do. The therapy I practice is indigenous in nature because it truly is from within. And I learned how to begin this process from the Hawaiian indigenous tradition. I have experienced the effect of the original style of therapy on the modern-minded person. It isn't very effective because of the underestimation of the modern person's ego strength and programming. I have applied my personal skills to the indigenous ideology, and I have developed a very effective therapy for clients. I do the therapy effectively because I read subtle human energy. It's a little the same as a lie detector and a bunch of medical diagnosis machines too. Many people do this same reading of people for various reasons. My reason was that I had a single father who never got past his grief and fear and anger. He was an Aquarian volcano just waiting to be triggered into eruption. That was my childhood and half of my adulthood, as I was given the family job of keeping track of him and being anyone's emotional scapegoat and crutch. My narcissistic father taught me to be an empath. And here I am now, healed, the forest has been logged, and I can stand at the window and commune with my mother, and on top of that, I am a teacher, something my mother always wanted to be, but left that in my plan to achieve. I became a teacher, as hard as it was to get through university and be studious with all the trauma embedded in me. An easier life would have been a trade for me, but the only thing I knew about my mother from my family was that she always wanted to be a teacher. So that was my road. I am very glad she set that up for me before she left. I wrangled my way into being a qualified English teacher. I taught mostly adults in a literacy context, which has given me the opportunities to learn about learning as its own subject matter. In the adult English teaching world, there was a structure, but as long as I satisfied all the stakeholders, I could do as I pleased in the classroom. After a few years, I had my adult students learning at a fast pace. I had to hide this from the reporting system to not draw too much attention to the other teachers who were teaching without my perspectives. So here we are. I love humans, I love learning, I love teaching, I love healing, and I love helping. And I can read something from people which most people cannot do. Not only can they not do it, they also believe it not to be real. But I can feel the spikes of subtle energy which the mind and heart together emit from their energy centers when a person speaks. Some people have such a strong signal being output that it instructs my own body, like a racing heart or tension rising. Sometimes they are so tense I have to yawn a lot to get the tension out of my own body. I hope doing that helps them too. My body requires the release, so out come the yawns to enable relaxation. I have found myself occasionally crying the tears of people who find it too difficult, too frightening. When I place the love of teaching and learning with the healing and the reading of subtle energy peaks, I have a very special gift. Healing is essentially finding the idea you learned for a reason of protection in a context which no longer exists. When it's shown to your aware mind in a context of safe, empowered adulthood, we have healing occurring. If a therapist knows just this, but they don't have the subtle energy reading skill, they will work in a more modern way. Lots of open questions and a lot of reliving traumatic emotions. I don't have to do it that way. You won't even know what I've found. You won't know until I've gathered a full understanding of the entire situation of how and why you learned what you learned, and then I'll show it to you. I do it that way for one reason and one reason only. I don't tell you early because for the healing to stick, I have to create a context for you. The way that trauma sets in is the same way I have managed to develop to retrain it out. There is much research, which I have never read, about learning being enhanced during heightened nervous system arousal or energy peaks. Emotional arousal and stress hormones, which are triggered by the brain with the heightened arousal, set in the trauma. That is the learning of something which will automatically protect you when triggered. It will also set in a new learning which negates the previous if done in the right way. There is a lot of research on this. I believe, as of yet, there isn't a consistent way to do what I do with technology. I am trained to feel the subtle energy spikes naturally because of my early life contexts. If I had to read a machine, it wouldn't be an easy, smooth process. I have experienced Scientology technology, often called the CANs. It reads changes in human subtle energy flow, a bit like me. I noticed, though, that I could read the reader. While I was taking advantage of the questioning, the reader was trying to hide from me how excited she was getting by the readings on the machine. I used their technique to relieve myself of a blockage, and then I remembered a very important memory. After that session, when my file was reviewed overnight, I was told I could no longer continue in the therapy using the CANs. Of course, I was reading the reader while she was telling me. To me, she felt very disappointed, but was hiding it, that we could no longer continue. I knew I had healed too quickly for their business plan. I really didn't mind. I knew I'd gotten the healing I came for. Therapy with me seems a little like a magic trick. You only have to tell me what you think is the problem. Then answer my questions as I sleuth around in your personal history without making you get too emotional about any one thing, unless you want to. I read the subtle peaks of your energy as I ask you and you answer. I'm seeking the same energy frequency I felt when you spoke of the original problem. When I find it, I continue to focus deeper and deeper in that area until I know all about that part of your history, so that I can understand how it happened, so that I can explain it to you. I won't let you in on it, and I will frame the answer so that it seems like a big wow. Now, you might think that is unfair, that I'm playing with your story for my own pleasure and not letting you in on it, but that's not the reason. I must create a positive spike for your learning to change and stick. You see, the spike that occurred to teach you the idea that protected you must be reset to the now truth, that you don't need the protection, you need freedom and free will again. Is this magic? No, not when you know how the trick works, and now I've shared it with you. If you can read subtle energy, please learn to help people the way that I can. It is really needed. And if you just need help relearning something and you don't know exactly what, come and ask for help. Once de-triggered, a person won't be dysregulated all the time. We are all being triggered all the time now. We're drowning in nervous system dysregulation. We're changing our society to adapt to all the triggers. I'm pleading with you, seek the therapy that attends to the triggers. Then we won't have to demand that people have less freedom and agency in their lives. We can all feel better and have more and more of the life that we want to feel as we live it. Hi, I'm Joanna Ruth from Tarot with JoannaRuth.Online. Hi, I'm Joanna Ruth, and this is your doorway to spiritual literacy. Why not come on in and learn some foundations together?